Imagine a world where distance means total silence. In the mid-1800s, sending a message across an ocean or a continent required a physical wire to be stretched every mile of the way. Before the internet, radio was the primary source of connection. Families gathered around receivers for news and entertainment, turning the device into a centerpiece of the 20th century home. School textbooks often attribute the invention of radio to Guglielmo Marconi alone. However, the technology emerged from an international scientific relay race that spanned decades. Simplifying this story down to one name misrepresents how innovation works. Every successful device depends on a stack of shared knowledge, built layer by layer until the final components click into place. The foundation for radio was poured by British scientists like James Clerk Maxwell and Oliver Heaviside. Through mathematical equations, they proposed that electromagnetic waves existed, rippling through space entirely unseen. Years later, Heinrich Rudolf Hertz proved these waves existed. Through rigorous experiments, he demonstrated that electromagnetic energy could travel across a room, and he published his findings in a book for the global scientific community. At this stage, electromagnetic waves remained confined to the lab. Scientists could generate a spark, but the transition from a physics curiosity to a utility was still years away. In 1895, after reading Hertz's book, Jagdish Chandra Bose demonstrated that these waves could travel through space without any physical connection. Around the same time, a 20-year-old in Italy named Guglielmo Marconi read about these waves and asked a practical question. Could we use these ripples to carry actual messages? Marconi started tinkering. In his lab, he set up a transmitter in one corner and a bell 30 feet away. By pressing a key, he sent a wireless signal that triggered the bell. He rapidly scaled this concept. By 1896, Marconi moved to England to conduct large-scale tests across the English Channel, eventually securing the official patent for his wireless telegraph system. Marconi's genius was not in discovering the physics, but in recognizing the commercial value of moving information through the air and engineering the hardware to do it reliably. Early radio could only transmit bursts of static, the dots and dashes of Morse code. It could not yet carry the complexity of human speech or music. That changed in 1906, when Canadian scientist Reginald Fessenden broadcast the sound of a violin to ships in the Atlantic. Sailors miles away were stunned to hear music instead of mechanical clicks. Fessenden used a carrier wave. Instead of turning a signal on and off, a steady electromagnetic wave is broadcast, and its shape is modulated to match the peaks and valleys of audio data. This allowed Navy ships to hear human voices for the first time. The equipment on the ship simply stripped away the bass frequency, leaving the audio for the crew to hear. Modulating the carrier wave took the radio from a niche maritime signal and turned it into a cultural vessel. It could now distribute music, political oratory, and news to millions at the same time. After strict military control during the First World War, the 1920s saw the birth of public broadcasting. Large-scale networks like the BBC turned radio into a formalized daily habit. In India, the airwaves opened in 1924 through the Madras Presidency Club, followed by the Indian Broadcasting Company in 1927. By 1932, the British colonial government took over these operations, officially forming All India Radio in 1936. The British Empire now held a centralized microphone, giving them the ability to beam approved narratives directly into the homes of a colonized nation. But the technology built to consolidate control became the exact mechanism used to dismantle it. By 1942, underground networks like the National Congress Radio were intercepting the airwaves. Mahatma Gandhi used these stations to broadcast his Quit India message, bypassing colonial censors. In Germany, Subhash Chandra Bose used a microphone to transmit revolutionary rallying cries that reached Indian ears thousands of miles away. This flow of information was so threatening that the colonial government required citizens to purchase a license for 10 rupees just to own a radio receiver. Radio evolved through a series of scientific dominoes. A British theory became a German experiment, which turned into an Italian patent and finally arrived in India to help organize a revolution. The history of radio shows how a shared discovery can eventually turn an invisible signal into a tool for national sovereignty.